Welcome to the EdTech Unpacked podcast, where we inspire and equip educators to create meaningful learning experiences, highlighting a thoughtful approach to the integration of technology as we teach and transform the lives of our students.
We are so glad that you're joining us for this episode, where today we're going to have a fight. Aaron's school has one-to-one iPads, and he is a true believer. While my school, we have one-to-one Chromebooks, and well, I know that we have the right solution, but since Aaron and I cannot come to an agreement, we decided, well, where else better to have a fight but in front of y'all. So we're glad that you have signed up here for the fight. Let's go.
All right. My name is Aaron Long. I work at Burton Adventist Academy, where I have been teaching for over a decade and now work in the area of development and advancement. I'm a proud graduate of Southwestern Adventist University with a bachelor's in religious education and a minor in psychology. I received my master's in instructional design and technology from Walden University in 2017, and I have a passion for leading and inspiring educators, especially in the area of thoughtful integration of technology.
My name is Desmond Suarez, and I work here at Richmond Academy. I'm in the building for the summer for the podcast, where I have been teaching for over a decade as well. I teach religion, social studies, computers, videography, and I am a proud graduate of Southern Adventist University. Even though I'm repping Kettering College today. By the way, send me your college university shirts. I want to wear them. Contact form at edtechunpacked.com. And where I went to Southern Adventist University, where I got a bachelor's degree in religious education, minor in computers, and I got my master's from the great Florida State University in instructional systems and learning technologies. And I really love helping people learn so that they can fulfill their greatest potential and finding the best tools to accomplish this.
All right, Desmond, let's unpack the tech.
Let's go.
All right, so as we kick this off, I've been really excited. Desmond and I kind of go back and forth a bit at times over Chromebooks and iPads, and this has been a brewing storm of sorts, and I know that we're both excited for today. And it really comes back to our backgrounds and experiences we've had in the classroom setting. And so we thought we'd kick off by just sharing a little bit about that. For me, my experience has primarily been with iPads, and it goes all the way back to the Prescott Adventist Christian School, where I first had an experience right at the time when Apple was coming out with their screen mirroring technology. And my wife and I taught in that small school setting. She taught pre-K 2, I taught 3-8. Shout out all the small school teachers out there. You can do it, and technology is not too much to handle. It's just an area you have to stay emphasizing in your professional development. So that's why you're here, I hope. But that was a moment in time where I decided, you know what? I've been an Android guy. I've been a PC guy.
I didn't know you're an Android guy.
I was an Android guy. In fact, get this, I would get into this type of a back and forth with my buddies who were iPhone guys. And I would argue the Android side versus iPhones.
I'm still a Pixel Android go all the way.
Listen, we'll have that discussion another day. How about it? You green bubble people. You know what I mean.
It's only green for you.
That's right. Oh, man. So it was a moment in time where I had the opportunity to essentially strip out the school classroom down to the studs, down to the walls, rebuild it, including technology, desks. We redid everything. And it was a really neat opportunity to see through the authentic integration of technology what an environment you can create, really centered around screen mirroring. That's what first attracted me to iPads, was that easy shareability using Apple TVs. And even though there were other protocols out at the time, they weren't simple to use and they weren't as reliable as iPad screen sharing. So that's my background. Fast forward a number of years. Man, I haven't even added that up. That was about 14 years ago when I started that journey. Here at Burton Academy, we've had an iPad program that I helped found when I came here 11 years ago. and wrote our original document, helped get that passed through the school board. But at the time, it was a bring your own device program. And boy, Desmond, I look back at that and I think I am so glad we don't have a bring your own device program anymore. Yes, it helped us get going at a time we couldn't have otherwise. But all the headaches and management issues, lack of management that comes up, it's a scary proposition. So if you're at all considering, I hope you're not, whether or not to go bring your own device or school owned, I think we're way past that. I don't even know if that needs an episode.
I was saying, Aaron and I have talked about doing an episode on that, but I think we'd just be ranting and telling you why you shouldn't.
That's
please
all it
beg.
would be. There's no pros. It's all cons, basically.
Well, all right, it saves the school money on the books.
That's true.
But the families end up paying more.
That's true. Yeah, that's it. So there's your whole episode right there.
Yeah, we're done.
So for today's purpose, we have a school-owned device program here at Burton Academy. You see sitting in front of you one of our student devices. We go with a basic but new iPad, and we do the Logitech Smart Connector keyboard cases. So the students receive that. They're issued those, and then we've actually transitioned from an earlier generation of Logitech pencils to this year we're transitioning to the newer generation of Logitech pencils, and that's just a cost savings. Of course, you'd love to have Apple pencils out there, but you have to be sensitive to cost. And so there's the package along with the student charging device, which has a couple of cables for charging, and then of course AppleCare, which is critical. And so our package that we offer to the students costs us about $520. And plus AppleCare, which runs about $50. So still under $600 for the entire package. And we're life cycling that in about 4 years. Desmond, tell us about your background with Chromebooks and share a little bit.
Yeah, so that's a good journey. I resonate with a lot of it. And I liked how it sounded like a lot of your development in educational technology happened alongside the iPad. So there's like an emotional connection there as well, right? I understand that. Yeah, when I first came to Richmond Academy, I've always been in technology, wanted to use it, but the first time I really got to be able to actually use technology in the classroom, to a significant degree. And at the time, this was before Chromebooks, I think, even were a thing. Maybe they had the really early first devices, but I don't even know if they had that when I started. And we had one-to-one MacBook Airs. And man, they were awesome, but they were expensive to buy, expensive to manage, both time and money. Our IT person was working crazy time. She brought them in. She would have the students turn them in at Christmas time and to the beginning of the school or into the school year, and then had to do all sorts of work and updating them. And it was such a hands-on process. And I was following the Chromebooks in the news, and then I remember walking into Best Buy and seeing a shelf of Chromebooks, and I was like, man, this might be perfect for us. We were already using Google products. I've liked my father always makes fun of me and says that Google owns half my brain. But maybe they do. I've always been a fanboy of Google. I remember getting my first Gmail account when Gmail first, you had to have an invite, and I've always been an early adopter on Google products. And so anyways, I remember seeing those and thinking, man, that's going to work great with our products we're already using. And it was, we bought these, I think we might still have some, I don't think they work anymore in our back office, but these early Samsung, they were so light and thin, and they were I want to say $150, $200 at the time. They were pretty cheap, and we got our money's worth out of those. I tell you what. And so I don't think those we'd bought for elementary. First, we were still MacBooks at the high school, and then Chromebooks at the elementary. And then they started getting better and better Chromebooks, and we felt like we could do those for the high school. Because at first they weren't powerful enough, we felt like, for the high school, equipped enough. And so, yeah, we bought Chromebooks, and we've been doing that. Man, I don't know. I should have looked at what year we started them. It's probably been 8 or 9 years we've been on Chromebooks. Some of them have worked better than others. Some of them have last longer than we expected, or mostly shorter. I'll be honest. And we've had some, like we had these beautiful Samsung foldable Chromebooks that still, if I pull one out, the screen is just gorgeous. It was like, I don't know, twice HD, really beautiful screens, OLED screens, really thin, but their processor was not the fast enough. And yeah, they kind of didn't hold up through COVID. With all the video conferencing, that really was hard on them. But yeah, so we continue to use Chromebooks. We love them. We're going to get into all the reasons why we love them. Being a part, simplest is that, like I think most schools, we are a Google Workspace school, which you guys are as well, right?
We are.
Use Google Workspace. And so all the apps and all the services work so well on the Chromebooks that continues to be a big selling point for us. And in front of me, I just have the device cost. We'll talk about the other costs later. We don't buy cases. For one Chromebook we got, which, disadvantage of Chromebook is there's so many different models. It's harder to get this, but we bought these beautiful like skins to put on the outside that were our school logo and everything. And I don't know if we'll get them for these, but we just bought these. No students use this one yet. This is the Lenovo IdeaPad Slim 3i Chromebook Plus. I love the names.
It's a long name.
It is a long name. And we have actually, like, what we do is when our school grows or we need to replace devices, we just buy the ones for the ones we need to replace at this point. And so we bought a few extra for this year because we have some growing high school. And so we still have students who are using a similar device that is older. And they're working pretty well, but they're working pretty well. And then we have for our 7 and 8, we have the Dell 31110 laptop, or Dell Chromebook 3110 laptop, and that is at $269. I don't know if I said this one's at $425. And those are just the prices off the websites. You probably can get bulk pricing for cheaper. But yeah, that's kind of lays the groundwork. We wanted to start off by laying the groundwork of like what devices we're talking about. And you can get a Chromebook for $200, especially if you're doing a bulk. I recommend not. Don't get those.
You don't have to whisper that, Desmond. You can preach that from the mountaintop. Don't
buy the cheapest.
Listen, and so Desmond and I are coming to you from within the Seventh-day Adventist school system.
Mm-hmm.
Many of you watching this may not be part of that school system that we have grown up in and love. We're passionate about Seventh-day Adventist education. However, I will say a big drawback to me is the mindset that so many people have had over the years when it comes to technology purchasing within our school system. It's almost always cheaper is better, and we scrape for hand-me-downs and giveaways, and it creates a very broken ad hoc type of technology environment in many schools. And so I always preach the opposite end of that. Buy what works best, and price matters, but it should not be your leading reason for purchasing technology. And so with this, I think this is a good segue. This could have been a point probably either one of us could have made, but I want to address a misnomer that, at least I believe it's a misnomer at this point, that Chromebooks are dramatically more affordable than iPads. And so I found a great, we'll link to this in the show notes, a breakdown by K12TechRepairs.com. Thank you guys for putting this together. That looked at a 3-year life cycle of iPads versus a 3-year life cycle of Chromebooks, which I have seen other websites put together similar approaches to this. And they analyze the cost of both, and it takes into account something most people don't usually, and that is cost recapture when you're selling off your devices at the end of the life cycle. It also takes into account the fact that any quality school technology program should include life cycles of devices, right? We're not making a one-time purchase. We're making a purchase that fits into how many years we want to maintain this device. During that time, we're planning for the next device life cycle so that you can perpetuate your program and it's not a one-off deal. Many small schools still struggle with that. Larger schools, you probably don't have to worry about it. It's built in. You have large budgets. But most of us probably find ourselves somewhere in the middle. So I love this. They broke it down and found, all things considered, being that iPads typically have a liquidation value of 30 to 40% at the end of their life after 3 years versus Chromebooks, which were closer to the 10% level, that an iPad 3-year all-in cost was between $250 and $381, and a Chromebook 3-year all-in cost was between $240 and $305. Very similar numbers. I don't share that to say iPads are cheaper. They're not, and they're probably still not, even when taking into account life cycle. However, it really puts them almost apples to apples when you're factoring in the cost recapture at the back end of an iPad life cycle. So I wanted to address this up front. I asked Desmond if we could, because I find this to be such an obstacle when people talk about one versus the other, and affordability being such a leading argument to push people to Chromebooks. And really, it's a very short-term, limited approach if you're saying, how much does it cost us up front? And we're not taking into account, this needs to be a program with longevity.
Yeah, it's a good point. I've had that approach, for, when I started this for a while, I know. It used to be the Chromebooks were just the cheaper option. And Aaron, you called out that having a school system, and I think a lot of that's changing. But if you read the news much about Chromebooks, a lot of public schools did the exact same thing, especially during COVID. We're not unique in that. I think it was very common, in that, it's easy to want to go to the cheapest thing, and Chromebooks have. It's kind of frustrated me that Google allowed so many bad Chromebooks to be made. And Google is trying to change that. This one is what we call Chromebook Plus. I don't know if it says on the outside. Yeah, it does. I don't think you can see it, but it says Chromebook Plus right here, which means it has a certain higher level of quality in the specs. And there's a whole list of things that it has to meet. And so it's going to be a higher quality device. And I think that the life cycle cost is probably similar, because yes, when we get rid of this, we have a bunch of Chromebooks we don't know what to do with that are old because no one really wants them. We squeeze all the value out of them, and then they're not worth anything. And we get as much value as we can, and then we don't know what to do with them. And I kind of hate that e-waste aspect of it. And so I do like that you can resell the Chromebooks, or the iPads, not just to reclaim the slightly higher price, but to also keep them out of the landfill a little longer. But yeah, the cost for the device, we're kind of in agreement, is going to be pretty similar. I posted on Reddit to help me with this. I'll put a link in our description. There's like 30 comments about, I posted in a Chrome OS Reddit thread. And so everyone's there defending Chromebooks, and they were very adamant that cost was better on the Chromebooks. If you do it right, maybe it's slightly less, I think, probably. But I think really you should choose. The cost is close enough. You probably should choose which device is better for your setting.
I appreciate you saying that, Desmond. Obviously, that's how I feel. And I'm going to share, too. This was funny. So as I'm getting ready for this episode, I'm doing my own research, right? DYOR. Even though I have my talking points kind of internalized, I wanted to still do some fresh research. So what do I find as I'm researching Chromebooks versus iPads 2024? I find Desmond's Reddit string there. I was going to wait till we were live on the episode to tell him that I've already read all of his talking points, but it was hilarious. But he happened to mention it as we were getting on to prepare for this episode, so I let him know. But it's a good string. I actually enjoyed reading it. I read the entire thing. And it's helpful, reading both sides of the issue. That's why we're here today. So, Desmond, is it time to throw down right now?
Let's do it. So let me explain how
the tech. Go for it.
Let me explain how we're going to do this. We debated how to do the debate. But what we're going to do is we're kind of going to go back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
We probably should have had a timer, man.
We're
going to try and
keep
push
it short and
push these
fresh.
quick.
Yeah. We got to go fast, don't we?
So I'll throw out the first point, and then Aaron's going to give a rebuttal. Some of them are going to be stronger points than others. And so we will keep going back and forth on that. After he gives his rebuttal, he'll give his next point. And we're not really keeping score. We're kind of give a discussion through the whole process. And we'll figure out how the Chromebooks are better by the end. So our first thing is administrative cost. So we talked about the device, and the device cost is about the same. But I went and talked to our IT person, who is awesome. I love working with Valerie. And I asked her, like, what is our management cost? Because I know she's worked with different management processes through the years, and there were points where we had to buy external, like management processes and stuff. But right now, if we just use Google Workspace, I had it pulled up. Where was it? They're like plus their premium package for education. And so that is, I closed the tab. I have the price. I was trying to remember the name of it. It's $5 per student per year for the device management. And then when you purchase the device, it's $38 per device platform, which is a little confusing. Basically, what that means is if you like replace a device, like, so if someone, this specific one gets trashed, you don't have to buy that again. You don't have to buy that platform price. You just replace the device. You don't have to pay $38 again. And then the management cost, every 4 students, I think they say, you get a free staff account. So really that's $5 per student per year for managing our Chromebooks. And that comes with all the Google stuff. A lot of that would be free, but it's way more than just our management.
So I wasn't fully prepared to rebuttal this one, although I can speak to it. We've used a product called Jamf. So Desmond's alluding to the Google Suite, which serves as your MDM, right? It's going to manage your devices. On the Apple ecosystem side, you don't have to have an MDM. As with Chromebooks, you don't have to. But to really get the best management of the devices and be able to maintain control of all the settings you want to have control of, you really want to have an MDM, if at all possible. And so with that, we use Jamf. It's a very industry standard product. We've been with them since they were Zulu Desk, and I love the product Zulu Desk created. Jamf bought them out, kind of mashed up what they have today. So our licensing structure has changed over time, but I would say it's very similar annual pricing. No upfront pricing in terms of you have a device fee you guys are paying. When you purchase a new device, we're just paying either an annual license fee, or, and I'm looking right now on their website, they have a 4-year license for $29. So it's going to be similar, maybe a little bit more annual cost, but I think our licensing structure was a bit less. Of course, we'll be adopting into this as we bring in new devices, but I would almost say nod to Apple on this one, because there's no initial upfront cost for the MDM. It's just an annual licensing fee. So I love that you led with this one.
But what we did on this? A little tip to schools. Google told us a few years ago that they were going to raise their prices on the enrollment price. And so our IT person went to our business manager, and we had enough money in the bank to be able to do this at the time. I know not everyone's able to, but we knew we were going to stay with Chromebooks for a while, so we went ahead and upfront bought a bunch of them before the licenses.
That's awesome.
Before they raised their price, and so we haven't bought any since they raised their price, and we're still resting on those big ones we bought a few years ago.
That's great. And so I'm going to dive into my first point here. All right, if we can go ahead and move past management. So
close to tie on that. I'll call it.
Right, close to tie. I actually have a few more management features later in this discussion, but cost, we'll call it a tie. We'll be real generous on the episode. So the creative side. All right. So everybody thinks of Apple, and their marketing is phenomenal. It really drives home what a great platform they have for creative people in creative spaces like schools. And so video capture, to me, this is huge. I have 2 points here. I might just combo them for the sake of time with creative space, but video capture and annotation ability. These are 2 elements that are in the creative realm that, to me, I don't know how I would be as effective doing what I did without those features. Just a quick use case here. Students creating videos, not on just simply creative, but in terms of sharing their own learning, okay, recording themselves talking about something, submitting that as part of an assignment. This is very much common in iPad schools, whether that be reading fluency or just recapping something that they have been presented to and just sharing their learning. Of course, then you bring in all of the accessories built for iPad that you've probably seen, these iRig frames that you're turning your iPad into video production platforms, and commercials that have been filmed with an iPad, and all the creative space side of it with videography. And then, of course, also with screen annotation. The native built-in capability of the basic iPad now. This used to be relegated to iPad Pros, and now it's all iPads have that functionality, their starter editions included, that we so heavily depend on, whether it's students simply responding to prompts through handwritten input, or more on the artistic side. I don't really know how I would take and do what I envision a classroom setting to be without those features. So, Desmond, what do you have to say about that one?
Dude, good point. I knew that the creative would be an Achilles heel on the Chromebooks. And also I hope that like our audience is getting mad when we get things when don't say things the way they want to. Comment, let us know what you think. But yeah, the built-in creative tools on the iPad are very strong. And I don't think you hit the hardest one or the best ones, but so I'm going to roll with the ones you presented. These Chromebooks both have cameras on them and the front, and the students can use I usually send them to use I was blanking on me now. I have it pulled up right here. Loom, which is a built-in extension, super easy to use, super awesome. We did an episode earlier about using screen recordings. Loom is awesome for doing screen recordings and video of yourself. I'll give you the video editing. It's a little challenging on a school managed Chromebook. And there's not like a built-in editor that's worth anything. And I think you might be able to trim it a little. Like products like WeVideo are fantastic, and you can use those on the iPad too. And then we don't have something built in like GarageBand or iMovie. But we do have like
appreciate you pointing all those things out, Desmond. And by the way, welcome. Not to steal your rebuttal, but I understand that you yourself may dabble with tablet-based video editing. Am I right? You do. And so what device of preference do you use for that? I'm curious.
One of my jobs is video editing at school. I teach video, and I like using my DaVinci Resolve. And I think you might be on an unmanaged device, maybe run it on Chromebook, but I don't know if I'd want to try. I've been using it on the iPad, and I do like it.
Oh, wait, an iPad, you said. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I didn't know where you were going.
I was going to say that.
Yeah.
I'm going to give the creative to,
okay.
But that doesn't like. If you're familiar with DaVinci Resolve, you don't want every student using DaVinci Resolve.
That's true.
That's a heavy video editor. And it is weird because like I've complained to you, I love DaVinci Resolve on the iPad, but I want to use touch because it's an iPad and it keeps wanting me to use a keyboard. Like I have to have keyboard shortcuts to do certain things. There's no touch option. And that's just
so ironically,
it's driving me mad.
As we're preparing for this episode, Desmond shows me a new keyboard.
I had to spend $50 on this little thing.
That's right.
To be able to get to all the pages on DaVinci Resolve.
I love your commitment to the iPad platform. You just you're really helping me out here today. So
that's
thank
me
you.
Personally. I finally bought my first iPad in many years. I had an old one a long time ago, and I'm trying to learn the iPad way. But I'll be honest with that. And man, we're off topic on our top points.
We are. So you need to hit me back.
Well,
with
I
your
do want to
next
say,
one.
as a professional who likes to do more heavy things, a power user, iPad or Chromebook, I couldn't have those as my only device. Either one.
That's true.
I run into roadblocks. I run into things that both devices can't do, and I need a real computer. And as a student device, both of them are capable in different ways. So let me give it to my point. You gave me I think the biggest point for the iPad, and I'll give you that one, but you're not going to beat me on this next one. And that is the Chromebooks have full featured web browsers. And until I wouldn't know how powerful this is until I bought my iPad, and have been so frustrated that I don't have a full web browser on the iPad. And I keep running into limitations. I was on a music site the other day. Creative, right? It's supposed to be for creatives. And it was one of the sites for downloading music and sampling music for using in videos. And the player just didn't work. It just said doesn't work on the browser. Didn't even try. Wouldn't even do it. And then I was talking to our administrator, IT administrator, and she said that in GoGuardian, which is a filtering service that we use and you guys used to use, but sounds like you're going away. There's certain parts of the administrative console you can't get to. And I keep running into these things in the browser that I just can't do on the iPad.
Well, it's a valid point. And so I would say this on a user standpoint, I have actually never run into that exact problem where a plugin or some piece of code is not working right. But I do accept that it's possible and you experienced it. So I validate your experience, and we'll go ahead and give you the nod on that one. I would just say, I use the iPad Pro. Okay. So I've got my smart
and
keyboard
that's what I have
case,
too.
and
I have
this
the
is
iPad
what Desmond's
Pro right
using. Here. And granted, I don't use it as religiously as my MacBook. I don't. In the classroom, I use it religiously. Outside of the classroom, I gravitate towards my MacBook. So I'm not browsing the web heavily on my iPad Pro. I've never run into it. I have talked to people that have. I do think it's a minimal issue, though, just from my own experience being what I would consider to be a semi-power user. But I would go ahead and say, let's give Chromebooks a nod on that one. We'll give you one.
Very cool. Give me one. You're going to give me the next one, too.
I don't know. We are. So,
well, I'm not. I mean, my next point.
Your next point. Well, we'll see. I might have a better pushback on that one. Okay, so I'm going to talk about versatility, and I had a couple sub points here. I was going to do these separate, but I'm going to go ahead and hit you with a couple here because I think they really go together. All right. So here's the first sub point under versatility. I love that iPads can either function with or without a keyboard. The day did exist where they weren't as versatile on the keyboard side. Obviously, without a keyboard, very versatile. They're light. They're just very mobile. But with the keyboard, you had your Bluetooth keyboards not pairing and dying and having to charge them. Listen, in the days of the smart connector, this is a non-issue. The keyboards power off of the device. No pairing to worry about. They natively pair with the smart connector. That's what I love about these keyboards that we talked about a few minutes ago with the Logitech cases. And of course, if you can afford the Apple ones, all the better. But they work so well. I love that versatility. And here's the compliment. It allows students of a very broad range in age to use the device. So example, 4 and 5-year-olds, no problem using iPads. You hand them the device, you launch an app, whether you as the teacher are launching and locking the devices, because that capability is there on both platforms. You have control of that, and the native element, the touch interface, obviously that's going to be way more friendly to small, young students, 4, 5, 6, 7. Programming, my wife's classroom, first grade, they do programming on the iPad with sequential programming, not coding. There's a difference, right? But they learn the basics of programming using the Lego system, and yeah, it's awesome. I love watching them do it. She'll take videos and show me, and what a cool experience. Super native without the keyboards, not necessary, and the touch interface is much more effective with younger students. And then, of course, you throw the keyboard on there all the way up through seniors in high school. Very efficient and proficient. So the versatility element is what I would throw to you.
And I'm going to 100% give you especially for the little younger kids, like second grade down, don't even consider a Chromebook. Like iPad all the way until they are able to spell more proficiently. Like the Chromebook is typing first, where the iPad is touch first. And so my rebuttal, I'm going to combine my 2 points with the versatility, is the built-in keyboard. I know you can get a keyboard for your iPad, but especially when in high school, when they are typing most of the time, like they're typing a lot, having a built-in decent full-size keyboard. This keyboard's way bigger than the ones that you have on your iPads. And having a good solid keyboard, it goes a long ways. And so it might not be as a big an advantage as it used to be, because those iPad keyboards are getting better. Especially if you spend $350 on the Apple one. But it is still, I think the Chromebook ones are better. But the other versatility thing is, how many ports do your iPads have?
Depends on which iPad you're talking
No,
about.
It doesn't.
We could go back a few years. They had more ports. Most of them are going to have a solid one, right?
One.
So
yeah, let's count. Okay.
Is this your counter? You're coming back.
This is part of my versatility thing.
Oh, versatility. All right. So
You're
this is rebuttal to versatility. Got
rebuttal to versatility. Keyboard in. I got a USB-C. I've got a USB-A. So 2 different USBs. I got a headphone jack. I've got another USB-A.
My adapter has a headphone jack.
And I have an HDMI. And I tell you what, I was editing videos on this thing, and I know that Apple just expects you to use Bluetooth headphones, but Bluetooth has a delay in it. And so when you're editing video, you really can't use Bluetooth headphones because you get that delay and you can't tell if your audio is synced right. And I was getting really frustrated because I had to have my external drive plugged into it. And then yesterday I was trying to, and I know your students might not get into this problem, but I needed to transfer stuff from one hard drive to another hard drive, and I couldn't. And by the way, because the iPad has 1 port, the iPad didn't support the formatting of my my drive, and so I couldn't fully use it.
Yeah, so I'm going to rebuttal your rebuttal to my point. You're really talking about, if we're being honest, some really power user type of things. Now, you could make an argument that maybe
the headphone jack is a power user thing.
Okay, and I want to clarify. I actually picked this up to double check. I'm like, I think most of our student devices have them. So this one does.
Oh, does I don't think the newest one does. I was looking.
It may not. So we don't have any of those in hand. We're still using ones that were purchased over a year ago because, hey, that's what you get with iPads, right?
Mm-hmm.
Stable longevity of use. I could add that to my. I didn't even add that. I don't think
you should have.
I should have, right? Maybe it's down there. But anyway, so most of our students do use headphones, but as you know, a lot of them will use Bluetooth headphones as well. And so in the days of Bluetooth headphones, that more applies at the younger ages. We actually have sets of headphones that the teachers can grab and check out, take to their room when they're doing testing, things like that on the iPads. All the kids have their own headphones. I'm going to just say in the real world, it's been a non-issue. Okay, so it might seem really big. The basic version of the iPads we've had so far have had a port. I'm speaking of my iPad Pro. I knew where you're going with that, so I kind of gave it to you.
My iPad Pro does not have a headphone jack.
That's what I'm saying. So mine doesn't either. So I was kind of giving you that point, although in the real world, we haven't had the issue. Okay, so we have USB-C and headphone ports. So I would say, pretty much everything the students need to do, they're not coming in with older versions of USB drives. There's no purpose. Everything's cloud-based, Google Drive. Storage is no longer kept, that's not an issue we run into. So I think in reality, this isn't me just pushing back for no reason. It's to say we don't run into any situations where those points have mattered. So there you go.
I'm going to push back on the headphone jack one because you might have some points on the other, because we've actually, as like a classroom management thing, this last year we banned students using Bluetooth headphones as a way of like trying to prevent them from using their cell phones, because they would tell you they were using,
and it's connected to their
connecting
phone.
Bluetooth to their Chromebooks. And we knew because they were walking in the hall without their Chromebook, it was a phone in their backpack, and so as a way of helping to manage our students' phones, we said wired only, and hey, there's a headphone jack.
I've almost lost track of whose point we're on. Was this
I think it's my turn to deliver one,
and it's your point
and
for
we
a new
we
one,
got to
so.
speed up. I'm looking at our time.
Let's go.
And we could just talk forever. Okay. Again, maybe my biggest one, full featured. I know Google Docs, slides, sheets, whole workspace. I've run into this as a frustration with this iPad, is like trying to use, especially slides. I was trying to use Google Slides. It is painful on an iPad. And I'm sure I would get used to it, but it's like missing features. They put them in weird places. They hide them behind extra layers of menus. And they're just like the Google Docs. And I know I'm picking on a Google service on an iPad, but that's a big part of what we do in school is use the Google services. And Google Docs, Google Slides, Google Sheets are limited. They're less on an iPad. And I was trying to figure out, like, could I just open the presentation in the browser? And the iPad wouldn't let me do it. Maybe there's probably a hack. I didn't try forever on how to do it. Maybe I uninstalled Slides. I don't know. But I got really frustrated trying to do things. I was like, man, I'd feel bad asking my students to use Google Slides on their iPad because it is not good.
So let me ask you a question here. And my rebuttal is going to be a question to say, what feature or features did you find missing that you felt like were critical to the student experience?
The biggest one is just cumbersome. This is the first part. The one that I couldn't find, but I'll admit I did find it later. I just couldn't find it at the spot because it was hidden in a weird spot, was my notes. I was doing a presentation and I didn't have my computer. It was already hooked up to the projector, and there was some notes that I needed. I couldn't get a hold of them, and I tried on my phone. I couldn't find them on my phone, and finally I found the toggle on the iPad, but it was in a weird spot.
So this is why I asked the question, okay? Because I've been what I would consider a power user of Google products on iPads and MacBooks for years, okay? This is starting year number 12. I got another one.
Go, and I'll tell you.
All right. So with that, when you first told me this, and it wasn't just today, Desmond's mentioned this to me before. I honestly thought I couldn't figure out, and I didn't ask you at the time, but like what specific features, because I go back and forth all the time between my MacBook, browser-based editing, and apps on the iPad. Of course, I'm using an iPad Pro, and I couldn't think of any features that I've ever looked for and not found. So I think maybe part of that is just,
Well, here's another one.
Go ahead.
And tell me if, because I did find that one, and it's me getting used to it perhaps. But in preparing for this show, I had shared my list with our IT person saying, hey, tell me what points, give me your feedback. And she left a comment on a few points. And I was like, that's a good one. I don't remember what it was, but I was like, I'm going to copy and paste that. And I was using the iPad. I was like, I'm going to copy and paste that into my Google Docs. It was in Google Docs. So it was in the comment on the side. I could not copy that comment.
That's interesting. Okay.
And it just wouldn't let me highlight it to copy it. I kept touching it. It was looking at me like I was dumb.
Maybe it wanted you to have the smart keyboard case, right?
Probably did. Apple really wants me to give them another $350.
Again, maybe I've never tried to copy a comment. We use comments like all the time in the flow of our admin team. So I've never run into that. I might say I'll just give that small point to you, but I do think a lot of this is user familiarity, right? It's being familiar with where things are at. So for me, we're a Google school. We're an iPad school. I hear this all the time, and the reason I think I'm happy to just push back is I don't feel like student or teacher experience is limited marrying those two worlds, Google and Apple, because we're at a place where Google's obviously investing in the Apple infrastructure massively because so many students out there are using devices. So this has been a good one. Was that your point? Now it's my turn?
Yes, your turn.
Okay. Let's go. All right. So we talked about versatility last. Let me go down my list. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about management.
Good.
And I'm going
That's
to
one of
right
my
off
points.
the bat. Right. I knew it would be. One of your points. But what I want to talk about with management is what I feel like, and so I can't speak firsthand from the Chromebook side. We might find this as a tie. We might find you win. I don't actually know. But I wanted to talk about it because I love the management experience on the iPad side. And just paint a picture for you. As a teacher in the classroom, MDMs such as Jamf have built in a tiered approach to management. All right, so that means it's not all centralized with an IT director somewhere holed up, in a windowless room in a school that you don't have access to. It's tiered in that as a teacher in a classroom, I can create profiles for, let's say, 6th grade math class that I define the list of apps students will have access to in my class, the list of websites they can access. And when my class starts, I can deploy that profile. And I, as the teacher, maintain control over that. So it's not just the supervisory side. It's actually the whitelisting and blacklisting of apps and websites that I maintain control over. Additionally, many of these tools like Jamf have a built-in tier for home. So you have IT level, which is your super user. You have the teacher level. You have the family or parent level account option, so that parents as well can create profiles for home that run within a time that they define. And what I love about it is it really takes into account the different roles of adults that are interacting with the student, and there's product built out to have the tiered approach to IT management. So that was somewhat general, but it's something I think is critical in this day and age where devices are for school, but they also sort of become personal devices. So wrapping in the home environment is key.
All right. So my points might not be exactly point to point, but we'll try to go there. So we haven't explored, and I'm not really sure if it's something we can't do or we just haven't done. But like giving management to the parents at home. So I don't have an exact rebuttal, and I'm not. That's a whole philosophical thing, whether that's a good idea or bad idea. There's pros and cons, and it's a great idea. Yeah, I don't know if I have a strong opinion. But we haven't done it. I don't know why. But in the classroom, we use GoGuardian, which gives us like all the features you just said. I can like set up profiles for the students in my classroom, and I can say, they can do this at this time. They can't do that. I can enable, disable it, see their screens. So I think I can do all that teacher stuff through GoGuardian. It's another service, but it's our filtering. It's a lot of stuff. You guys have a similar product. You used to have GoGuardian, and it runs really well. Now for management, I love how you set up a Chromebook. I don't know if you've seen the setup process, but when we get these new Chromebooks, I'll explain it. Step 1, after you power it on, type in the Wi-Fi. Connect to Wi-Fi. Got to do that on all of devices. Step 2, click in the corner where it says enroll in your school, or I don't know the exact wording. You can enroll. And then log in with any account, student account, teacher account, fake account. Well, not a fake account, like a setup account. That's registered at our domain. Now that device is in our domain. That's it. That's the whole process. Updating happens on the device. Got to disable a device. You can do it in the cloud. Just disable it. Management through the Google console. You can set up groups like you talked about through the IT person who's held up in a tower somewhere. No, she's just down the hall. And so that works quite well.
So, I appreciate this because I do think from everything I've read, I've never experienced the Chromebook side of it. I do think the initial setup is probably more streamlined. Not probably, it is more streamlined on the Chromebook
that's
side.
The whole process.
But that's not the whole process because someone had to set up the accounts.
You're
and,
right.
You know, tie it to a domain.
But you have to do that anyways. You have to do that anyways.
Well, you do, and here's where I'm getting with. I'm kind of giving you an edge on this one because on the Apple side, you have at least 2 accounts. You've got your Google account, because if you're a Google school, and then you have your Apple account. So to achieve a similar ecosystem, it's actually at least 2 accounts. Now, there can be syncing between a Windows-based server, which is what we have established. And so there is some syncing ability that can somewhat streamline from your local accounts to the Google accounts. However, not my area of expertise. I've dabbled and watched and seen. I've never really been the one to do it. However, I would say, from my understanding, there's a little bit more to the setup side. Now, from the unboxing side, it's actually just about as simple as what you described, because, they can ship configured so that when students unbox them, they're ready to go. It's not what it used to be with iPads. They basically are issued. In fact, with the Apple ID side, they don't even really need to have or know their Apple ID. They just need to be assigned one. So I know we're kind of starting to get into the weeds with IT level stuff. So I want to stay out of that. So they don't even have to know or care about that. It can be assigned and locked, which it probably should be. You don't want them logging into the App Store and playing around. That should be hidden. It should be locked. It just needs,
and same with the Chromebooks.
Access.
We have it set up so once it's enrolled, you can't log in with any outside account.
Right. So I guess I would come back to my bet is, from what I know on the iPad side, user experience is actually extremely similar out of the box, super easy to set up and roll with, and it's assigned. It's gotten so much better. So I actually, I would give you the nod on the IT director side. I think there's a little bit more to the Apple setup, but on the user side, I don't know. I would probably think this is closer to a tie.
All right, I'll take it. Now let me give you my next point.
Go for it,
because I think it's my turn. And this is a big one. I think is multi-user support. So a student leaves their device at home, or it gets dropped in the hall and it's broken, or whatever, the battery dies and they can't get a charger quick enough, or whatever it is. You can hand them a spare one. Or, there's been times where, you're given a quiz and the student, doesn't have a device and they can't, we've already handed out the extras or whatever. We keep a few spares. And then, they can't take the quiz. Well, I say, all right, first student done, log out, hand them your Chromebook, and then they log in. Everything's there. I can still control it. They take their quiz, log out, hand it back to the other person. And the multi-user support on these devices is fantastic. You log in, log out, everything's there, then it's gone.
And I'm going to give you this one. Although I would say in the real world, it doesn't really matter based on the use case you shared. But I do think, obviously iPads are not built for multi-user experience. They're just not.
I wish they were, even as a personal user.
So you can load profiles. There's an element where you can achieve something similar, but in the real world, nobody does it because it's too cumbersome. It's all device based. It's not something you're going to want to do. So I would say
you can't do it dynamically in the class, like
not really. But to your point, in terms of on the fly usage, I think that's part of the design of the program. So we have a loaner base of iPads. Any given day, a student forgets because multi-user doesn't cover, I forgot my device, right? Forgets, doesn't have it charged, but we need that kid to have an iPad now. We just have a loaner system. They go check one out. If you're using the MDM, you can actually assign that device in the MDM in 2 seconds to the student so that it pushes out permissions just like it is their device. So it becomes their device. It's assigned to them in your MDM. And all they really have to do is log into their Google services and other services you use, and that's on them to know their login info. And so to be honest, logging into Google is really all that you have to do in our case either. So it gets a lot of play on Reddit and places like that where people want to pick at it. But in the real world, to me, it's not a big issue, having seen this program mature to a place where we just have a base of loaner iPads. And
now when you're doing it one-to-one devices, it might not be quite as big a deal. But when you have shared devices,
you're
right. The lower elementary, or you have a cart that rolls down the hall and you got to pass them out.
Well, that really only comes into play, though, if the students are using account-based services. But you've seen it with the lower elementary. A lot of those are QR code-based logins now. Mm-hmm. You got a QR code, they just scan it with the camera app, and it logs them in. So I don't think that, again, in the real world, it's almost a non-issue, even at the lower levels. Just my opinion.
Well, good. Well, I'm looking at our time. Man, how many more do you have? I have several, but I have one more that I feel like is strong. And then I have some others. How many more strong ones do you have?
Oh man, listen. There's one or two I would love to dig into, but I'll probably just go ahead and I'm going to mention portability. I don't think we have to go back and forth on it because it's really not a discussion. iPads being more portable get the win. They're about half the weight of a laptop.
They're lighter than most of them. Yeah, I get
they're,
it.
1 to 1.3 pounds is the average iPad. 2.2 to 3.5 pounds is your average Chromebook.
My only rebuttal is that I only have one device I got to keep track of. I don't have to worry about a detachable keyboard or.
Yeah, I didn't weigh it with the keyboard, so that's an excellent point. But
I don't have to keep track of multiple devices.
So I would probably end with support. There's so many though. I almost feel like this should be like a 2 or 3 part series. But
maybe we'll come back with your feedback. We'll use that for a later episode.
Let us know where we dropped the ball. iPad lovers, let me know what I didn't mention that I absolutely should have. Chromebook lovers, I'm sorry. Desmond probably did everything he could do. There's nothing more to share, right? So I'm going to end with AppleCare because I think support is so key. Even if you're not paying for AppleCare, listen, Apple is amazing. Having lived this in the classroom back in Prescott, Arizona, where we didn't have AppleCare on everything, but you could still pick up the phone and call Apple and get real live tech support until pretty late at night. Support for Apple is phenomenal, whether you have AppleCare or not. But with AppleCare Plus, these devices right here, you get 2 breaks per device with a 0 deductible. Okay, so in terms of built-in predictability, I know my cost. In fact, I was asking our IT director if we've had any students yet break a device more than twice where we had to send it in for warranty, and not yet. We've had some students get to 2. Okay, so we're still in the middle of this cycle. It's possible we could have a 3rd break, but our policy requires that if that happens, the student's family has to pay for it. So that's all up front. So it's not a cost to the school because we have clarified that's a cost to the family. However, the 0 deductible to me is so amazing. Okay, and that's not always the case with these insurance programs out there. So you're wrapping in phenomenal support with a 0 deductible replacement plan that's easy to use. To me, that's such a phenomenal element, Desmond, especially as we know part of our audience here is smaller schools that don't have the time to fully troubleshoot themselves and fix everything. A lot of our cities, you can go into an Apple store now and get in-person support in those cases as well. So I don't know how you can beat AppleCare Plus, but go ahead and try.
Well, I don't have, and there probably are services out there that are competitive. We haven't done that research. I think right now we just basically try to repair most things in-house. And if it's not repairable or whatever the cost is, we generally pass that on to the families. If it was the student's fault, if it's neglect or something like that, or just carelessness. And the only rebuttal I really have to that is that there are more things you can actually repair on a Chromebook, where on an iPad, when it breaks anywhere, you basically have to have Apple fix it or don't fix it at all. Yes, there's repair shops. I know someone who owns one, and he tells me that he tells his customers, this is a bad thing. You shouldn't do this. You're not going to be happy with your repair. And so, but yeah, the devices on the Chromebooks, they are pretty repairable. You can Frankenstein them, pull parts off of another one, put them together. When a device breaks, we generally keep it so we can, sacrifice it for other parts on another one. But we
I
don't
guess
have
if
the
that's how you want to spend your
AppleCare.
time, I'd rather just send it in and have someone else do it, and it's paid
not
for.
That complicated.
But if that's how you want to spend your time, go for it.
All
I'm
right, my last
surprised
point.
that's your rebuttal. Go.
I don't have a strong one. All right, my last one is true desktop style multitasking. The iPad really lacks multitasking. I know you can do that kind of like slide over thing, but to split screen, but to have like multiple windows where you can like copy and paste things between them, or have background apps. You can kind of do background apps, but not fully, especially if it's a slower device where it runs out of RAM and then all of a sudden stuff stops. And so the multitasking on the Chromebook, you can have multiple apps open in windowed through the Play Store, apps from the Play Store. You can have Zoom open and another tab at the same time. You can have bunches of tabs, multiple windows of tabs. The multitasking is I think a lot more comprehensive and stronger on the Chromebooks.
Well, if we had more time, I'd ask you to give a specific example where you felt heavily limited, because again, I
Dude,
go
how
back
often
and
do
forth
you
all the
use
time.
multitasking on your computer? All the time.
Well, I do, but when I'm on my iPad, what I'm
Yeah.
saying is I don't usually feel limited because I'm using my iPad for a specific use case.
There
We're
you
not
go.
suggesting these devices replace desktop or powerful, laptop computers. You and I both acknowledge we use a laptop for much of what we do. We're thinking, and I'm suggesting for a student device and student use case, again, I'll give you the nod, but I feel like it's really played up a lot more than it is a legitimate issue that inhibits student use. So
Let's go.
All right. Listen, we could go back and forth all day, Desmond.
We almost did.
Listen, we did, right? I haven't even looked at our time yet, but
It's over an hour, Aaron. I'm
oh
sorry.
my goodness. I don't know if we've done that yet. So
This is our longest episode yet. Sorry, editor. Sorry, audience.
We want to
hope
thank you
enjoyed
guys for joining us as we dove into EdTech Unpacked and explored how iPads are far superior to Chromebooks.
You like how I added that in the notes? I put Chromebooks.
No, I read it how you added it. Yeah.
Today we talked about really how the costs of Chromebooks and iPads are kind of similar now. I know that might be a surprise. And we debated iPads versus Chromebooks in the school. And we had some winning and losing points on either side. We didn't keep score. Maybe you did at home. If you did, put it in the comments. But I think that there's going to be some debate on who actually won this. There are benefits and drawbacks to both. I kind of love how they're quite different devices. And they're not like they compete, but they're very different devices. That's what we talked about today.
Awesome. Hey, we want to invite you guys to connect with us. Send your problems that we can help solve to our help desk. Do that by visiting edtechunpack.com. There's a place to submit audio recordings. We might just play you on the air. And of course, a form where you can send us your questions where we can help.
And as our blessing, I'm going to do a weird thing here and I'm going to quote Reddit. I thought it was really good. One of the comments. And here's the quote. Fact. Schools adopt Chromebooks will have iPad envy. Face it, there are some very cool iOS only apps. Schools that adopt iPads will have Chromebook envy and will purchase and manage a handful of shareable Chromebooks in addition to iPads. That is from the user K Pacquiao on the thread that I posted for this. And I say that in a part of our blessing to say that, yes, we can get passionate about either side. And sometimes it becomes like a team sport almost. And really get beyond the team sport part of it. And yes, whatever device you get, there will be things you're like, this is so cool, so awesome. And maybe you're looking at Windows devices or other kinds of tablets, or if you have the budget, like, MacBooks, maybe you're looking at other devices. There'll be benefits and drawbacks to both. Whenever you're making this kind of purchase decision, you'll never be completely satisfied. There's always things that are bad and things that are a blessing. And so I encourage you, dive into the platforms that you have, the ones you already have. Don't feel like you got to sell all your iPads to get Chromebooks now. Dive into the platform that you have, use it to its max. I always like to get as much as I can out of my technology before I look to upgrade. Don't upgrade or switch when you have such great stuff there. Use it, what you have. Don't feel overwhelmed by it. You will never utilize all of it because all these devices do so much more than any user ever uses it. So if you're not fully utilizing it, that's okay. Use what works best for your teaching style and what works best for your students. You are way more important than any technology that is or isn't in your classroom. You are a professional teacher, and deliver them on paper, on iPads, on Chromebooks, on chalkboards, on marker boards, whatever it is. Deliver them your best content in your best way. And remember, there is no substitute for great teaching. It's not just about the tools and technology that you use, but how you foster meaningful relationships with your students to transform their lives. We hope that you're blessed.